follow Anthony Walden be Matthew McDaniel.
Folks, I want to thank all of y'all for coming out. There's a lot of things we can unite on. They won't never give us the places we need to go. But if we unite on truth, and that truth will cut every one of us when we look at it. That's the first thing I ask us to do. Look in God's Word, see what God's Word says about our lives individually. And if we're lacking, let's get lined up with that. And if we'll do that, we'll see a change not just in our community, but we are in our nation. Our nation is in desperate need of a lot of things, and truth is the most important. Mr. Henson, board members, friends, I want to thank you for your love for education and our children first. I also want to thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak about my conviction and to take the time and the rights guaranteed to me by the First Amendment to our Constitution to express freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the right to peaceably assemble, and the right to petition the government for a redress of a grievance. As educators and Americans, we realize the First Amendment to be the most important because without it, the rest of the amendments just lose their value and their strength. I would also ask that any press that print any of my words or do so in its entirety using the transcript that I'll provide. Principle. Fundamental truth that serves as a foundation for a belief or behavior. Conviction. A firmly held belief. I know these are important to each of you. And if we possess them and they're based on truth, can they change? In the 7th grade, children are taught a module on ethics. Ethics are moral principles that control a group of people's behavior. And morals are principles of right and wrong conduct. Sadly, these principles are being redefined in our nation by social liberals who do not respect their meaning nor the value of our First Amendment to our Constitution. The federal government has bullied implementation of godless ideology on public education for decades, starting with evolution, to the removal of prayer, Christian celebrations, the homosexual agenda, and now the transgender issue. What will be next? I'll tell you. As far back as 2011, mental health educators from Johns Hopkins and Harvard and numerous other schools began to push to decriminalize adult child sex. Just as they say homosexual and transgender have no choice, they say minor attracted individuals, they call them MAI, are genetically wired to want to have sex with children. Therefore, it should be okay. Just last week, this made the news again. When the federal government begins to push for implementation of this attack on our children and threaten to withhold money, will this board hire an MAI or a pedophile to teach our children? For schools to receive federal dollars and children free education, parents are forced to send their kids into a system that minimizes their family's faith, values, moral convictions. And while there, impressionable children are forced to conform their ideas of right and wrong to morals according to government guidelines. You may say this is not true. Can a child refuse to be taught evolution? Or do an oral report on biblical creation? When a homosexual or transgender child asks another child, do you believe in my lifestyle? Can a child that's a Christian say that it's wrong according to their faith and not end up having to go to the office? Can they do a report stating that their faith in Jesus Christ is the only way to make it into heaven? Christians also have religious liberty and freedom of speech. And the Constitution states that these rights shall not be prohibited nor abridged by the government. But when the government chooses to condemn the rights of these, true Christians cannot deny their faith, regardless of the consequences. These changes have happened without the consent of the governed and to the dislike of the majority of folks in education. Even with the protection of the First Amendment, in Fannin County, our teachers are afraid to speak out for fear of administrative reprisal, loss of advancement, or being fired. And again, this is from FERPA on down that we've limited so much it shouldn't be limited. After word got out about me being here, I was told by more than one concerned folks for me to be very careful about what I said. Is this America? Or is this Russia or Cuba? We say safety is our number one concern for our schools. If we accept this, will our kids be safer? Will it promote a more vibrant educational environment? There is no way that this could be true. It's a delusion. And according to the dictionary, a delusion is a false, fixed belief. False, fixed belief. You may believe it, but it ain't true, in spite of evidence to the contrary. A man who thinks he is a woman fits this definition clearly. Just as anyone who believes that we can continue on this path and have less problems and live safer lives. For over 400 years, our founding principles based on Christianity have enabled America to be the envy of the world and the hope of nations. Now these same principles, the love of God, the love of family, the love of country, have become threatened, limited, and demonized and daily attacked in our society. We no longer teach responsibility for a person's choice, nor do we have discipline for bad actions. Everyone with a behavior that conflicts with established moral and behavioral norms now receives a mental health diagnosis of a behavior disorder, or worse, a genetic predisposition, they're just wired that way, that removes accountability from the diagnosed to force acceptance on the rest of society. And I'm telling you, this is the worst. And that to the discredit of many people who truly have mental illness. It's past time to say enough. How would we have felt about these issues 20 years ago? How would we have felt about them 10 years ago? 5 years ago? And now if we've changed, tell me why. Have we been enlightened or have we been frightened? I hear frightened everywhere I turn. Frightened with the loss of federal funds, retaliation, sensitivity training, loss of promotion, or fire. What are the positives if we accept this? If we continue to allow one or two that are so-called right, we get federal money. Now the negatives. Endless problems. I could stand up here the rest of the night and not go to all the problems that we can have if we allow this to continue. Confusion. This is the biggest thing that gets me. Confusion for hundreds of innocent, impressionable children. Legal bullying because of one's values. The values of the majority trample male athletes on a female team. What will this do to state playoffs and tournaments and everything that we've had for decades, even further? Privacy in our locker rooms and showers, sexual assaults, perverts. It's what they are. In with our daughters and our wives in these restrooms across our cities and our nations. If we do this, will education be safer? Safer for your children and will your grandchildren be better served? No amount of money can make this okay. And I agree with that. I say to you, listen to your teachers. It was said that we don't want vouchers because that's going to be on the straw poll ballot that's coming up on the Republican side. Because homeschools are less social, not as well educated, and aren't taught things like ethics and morals that they can receive in public education. I say from evolution to the acceptance of the transgender agenda, none fit the definition of ethics or morals. If public education continues on this path, you are forcing good people to leave. We have come to the point in America that every immorality is acceptable and every moral conviction is now bigotry. That Islam to atheism can be expressed by a teacher or a student, but anything that reflects Christ in the Bible must be silenced. Delusion. Again, a false, fixed belief in spite of evidence to the contrary. And for you to deny these things is pure delusion. We have great parents, grandparents who elected this board, who pay taxes to fund our schools, and people who deserve a voice, who want to send their kids to public education, public school. And they, at the same time, they're very tired of their faith and their values being trampled. These are our children, not the schools. Some of you, you're not here tonight, they're not in this room. But it was mentioned to me that we're called rebel rousers. I think it's a shame that some people might consider honest, hard-working moms and dads, grandmothers and grandfathers, rebel rousers because they dare to voice their concerns about what their children are facing in public education. some of our parents have said they may just have to remove their children. Have we forgotten that our schools belong to our community?
That's right.
Lord, you're entrusted with a budget that exceeds $11,000 per student. That's $31 million. And that money should not be used to indoctrinate innocent minds. Our people should have a voice and their values protected. The love of kids, I love kids no matter their race, their religion, nor their struggle. And as a deputy, we answer calls and never ask why. What kind of person is it? We just go. We put our lives on the line many times for people we don't know and that we may not totally disagree with what they're doing or what brought them to that situation that they're in now. And most of the times it's a situation they created. If I'm willing to die for someone I don't know, be assured I will most definitely die for my faith and protecting my family and the values that I believe in. There are some things more valuable that we can't surrender at any cost. I am not ashamed of the fact that I'm a Christian. And at the National Day of Prayer, Ms. Painter prayed a beautiful prayer for God's guidance in the task of education. His guidance, guys, is written in black and white in His holy book. Are we willing to follow? That's the big question. Here are a few words from that book that trumps the federal government, my opinion, or any in this room. Jesus taught if we were ashamed of Him, He'd be ashamed of us. I can't afford that to happen. We put darkness for light and light for darkness. Here's one that can cut us all if we're not careful. A double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. You can't say one thing in your life and then in your decisions do another. You cannot serve God and money. The federal government threatens us with what? I ask you, what do they threaten us with? Money. Choose you this day whom you serve, guys. It's God or government. And I'm telling you, in America, that's the question. It's not Trump or Clinton. It's God or government. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Listen to this now. From which some have strayed from their faith. And in their greediness, they've pierced themselves through with many sorrows. If we go through with this, the sorrows that will happen to the minds of our young children will be unimaginable. We'll never be able to recapture those precious, impressionable minds. I've always been told that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. In closing, principle and conviction are not based on what we can win. They're based on what is right. Mr. Henson, board members, your decision will outlast your tenure, affecting the minds of thousands of innocent and impressionable children. If your principles are the same as the federal government, then proudly sign your support and tell your daughters, your granddaughters, your sons, and your grandsons how much better your decision has made their lives for the future. Yeah. But if it is not your values, if it is not your convictions, I ask you to stand and do what's right and let what comes come. Your friends, these people in this room, your neighbors, these people in this room, your relatives and the voters of this Fannin County will stand with you to the bitter end. Thank you for having me this time, and thank you for all showing